Welcome to the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel powered by InsideTexas.com. This is the Reheat. I'm Joe Cook. That's Evan Beeth. Thank you for watching. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Of course, go to InsideTexas.com. Use that Ultimate Fan Bundle. Get 50% off Inside Texas on 3 and Rivals. You can also use that QR code there at the top left of the screen. Bunch of great recruiting insight, some team intel, baseball coverage, everything you need this time of the year. Come check it out over at Inside Texas. And one of the things we also do a good job of just talking about college football and everything that's going on. And the big news today, obviously, is that Texas Tech quarterback Brendan Sorsby is going to play this year. He got an injunction from a judge in Lubbock County that prevents the NCAA basically from enforcing this suspension, enforcing its own rules, and doing anything to basically try to maybe take a step to enforce these types of rules. And I know that, Evan, there's been a lot of Texas Tech and Texas conversation over the past few weeks. But this is one of those things where basically outside of an 806 area code, everybody in the college sports world is like, whoa, this is not right. And this is kind of an embarrassing and sad day for college sports.
It's real funny, Joe, when you've got the NCAA president, Charlie Baker, tweeting, hey, this can't happen. This is not something that should be going on in our sport. And I wish it was as simple as this, but it's like, all right, man. Yeah. Isn't that your job? Like, why is this happening? Charlie Baker, president of the NCAA. And of course, you know, what he's asking for is for Congress to step in and help them out here and actually kind of put their foot down on probably the easiest and simplest problem in this sport, where you kind of can just go through, get whatever you want if a local judge tells you can do it. And what's happened here with Sorsby is this injunction is basically pushed to trial that will go after the college football season. So, hey, we're putting you on hold. You can play. We'll figure this out after the season when, you know, he's already out of eligibility and already would have played. And they need some, you know, legal jargon stuff to happen. Really hard to get done for them to push this trial up before the season. Just unlikely to happen. So, you know, that's how it's going to be. He's going to miss these first two games against, you know, Abilene Christian, and I'm forgetting who the second team is, and that'll be that. He's going to play, and yeah, like you said, Joe, I don't know who outside of Texas Tech. For once, like the Big 12 is rallying against their own, when, you know, that their whole thing is kind of in this collectivity idea that it's us against the world and us against the SEC and Big Bad Big 10. Now it's, you know, hey, we don't like what Tech's doing either. Do you guys?
Yeah, it's nuts. And, you know, I was actually looking over some of the things that the NCAA tells its student athletes before they even play a down, a snap, participate in everything. In just complete, it is as black and white as it can possibly be. If you are an NCAA student athlete, you are not allowed. You agree to these rules when you sign up to play as a college sports athlete. You are not allowed to bet on any sport that the NCAA sponsors. So that means that if I am playing college football in Bloomington, Indiana, I cannot bet on Indonesian women's ice hockey because the NCAA has a women's ice hockey championship. That's an extreme case. But that's also meant to be like, okay, you know, if you're a player at Indiana and you're a roommate with a basketball player and you know he's out, but not the world doesn't know that he's out, well, that's inside information. So that's the genesis of the rule for the NCAA. If you're a student athlete, if you're a coach, you cannot gamble. And, you know, Rick Neuheisel got fired from Washington because he ran an NCAA tournament pool that probably had a very small buy-in. Like they have been that strict about it, and they've always been that strict about it. So there's that rule. Then there's just the fact that you are gambling on a game you participated in. And I think there are a lot of, for some reason, like there are some sports writing types who are trying to be obtuse. Well, he bet on himself, or he bet on his own team. Yeah, he bet Pete Rose style. He never bet against it. He never threw a game or anything like that. And it's one of those things where, like, you know, the button for betting on the other team, or the words that you tell your bookie on the phone, if that's what you were doing, like the buttons are right by each other. Like the line preventing you from gambling against your team is how far you can move your thumb or how far you can move your mouse. Like that is, and that's not a big barrier to cross. Everybody in the sports world like agrees to this. It's just kind of an understood thing. We've seen MLB players, Pete Rose obviously is one, and I know the Cleveland Guardians pitcher was throwing pitches, so that is a negative outcome. But like even if you're betting on positive outcomes for yourself, like that's still basically unpermissible by rules and just by basically everybody's thoughts on sports in order to keep things on the level. And that's something that basically everybody agrees to. And this judge, who I see a lot of people are like, oh, he's, he went to UT Arlington and he's a University of Houston grad. It's like, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. I know he may not be from Lubbock County or anything like that, but like, I think the NCAA said it best, like in the hearing, he says something like, look, if this guy has a problem, why are we rewarding him? Why are we, yes, go and get him the help, but there's got to be consequences. And since there are no consequences, since the judge can say this in a friendly, venue, it's just as like, it's basically the fact that there are no rules at this point. If you can go find a good judge who's on your side.
Yeah, I mean, and I was looking it up to make sure I got the name right. Jonte Porter in the NBA was banned from the NBA for life in 2024 because of wire fraud and gambling on games that he was participating in. And yes, that was games where he was personally affecting the result to skew it, but it still remains the same thing. Like you're saying, either way, he is on a screen or talking to someone to say, here's a game that I'm a part of. Here's the gambling bet that I am placing on it. That is the problem, more so than anything about throwing the games or having it influence the way you play, because at the end of the day, Sorsby wasn't even playing. I think the part that feels like the biggest slap in the face, Joe, is this little quote from the judge: "Suffer a probable, imminent, and irreparable injury." That's what would happen if Brendan Sorsby didn't play. He would suffer an imminent and irreparable injury if he had consequences to his actions. I do think, part of me thinks that this was a mental illness problem, and that Sorsby, like, you just don't gamble like this if you don't have a problem. And that's fine to acknowledge. And that's something that people need to address. And he went to rehab, and that's a good thing. But at some point you do need consequences for your actions. And it's not like it's an injury to him to have him not play because of things that he did. You don't say it's an irreparable injury for a NFL player. And this is a bad example because NFL players get a lot of slap on the wrists, but when there's a violence policy in the NFL, like, it's not like you're injuring their career for punishing them for what they did wrong. You're punishing them because they need to be punished. And that's the of all of these kind of cases. And so it just irks me that that's the kind of language we're using, that, oh, this poor young man, it's going to really suck if he can't play college football this year, won't it? I don't know. He's made a lot of money, gambled a lot of that money on his own team and a bunch of other things. And let's be real here. If he just went to the NFL this year and had their draft, which, you can, that way NFL teams can do is they could bid up to, our third round pick next year is how high we value Sorsby. The highest bidder gets him. He would get paid a decent bit of money through the supplemental draft and end up making it to the NFL. I don't buy anything at all that there's damage to him that's coming because of this gambling. It's just that he gambled, and that's that. And so it's blame, it's an excuse, and it's a really bad stain on the sport, which, you're hoping that this kind of stain is so powerful, Joe, that it does lead to some change. Like, this is the real smear that makes you go, hey, this cannot keep going onwards. This eligibility stuff was annoying for a while. Now it's just flat out stupid and bad for the sport. So we'll see how this works. We'll see if Charlie Baker ends up, and these ADs, I think someone was talking about in the chat, like, we'll see if these Big 12 ADs actually stick with what they're tweeting out right now. We'll see if that actually does lead to something. But for now, like, we've got a guy who has no business playing college football, and it's not even because he's 24 years old. It's because he directly broke rules, and they just don't have the power to stop that.
Yeah, I mean, you could have written the death of the NCAA article about 50 times over the past 10 years, but like, this isn't eligibility that has sensical arguments. Like, I get the Ferris State argument and then that red shirt argument from Trinidad Chambliss. You know what? A judge didn't think Joey Aguilar had a good argument. A second judge didn't think Charles Bediako had a good argument. But now you've got a judge who believe that, you know what? No, this is right. And so that means basically, again, none of the rules are actually enforceable. And I'm curious about what the trickle down is to, anybody else. If you're at a well-funded program, who cares? And okay, well, I'm going to go gamble, and well, it's not really going to affect me. And we saw even some of the Big 12 coaches and various people who either talked to Pete Nakos or Dellinger, just all these guys getting quoted about like, well, I mean, like go bet on yourself, because if I can fight this in court, then everybody's going to make a lot of money. I'm curious what the Big 12 coaches really mean. I know the Kansas State athletic director was quoted as being extremely angry. And I know that I think Georgia's athletic director even said, like, we need to kind of pool against this, and there may have to be some action, some unofficial action taken. But the fact that, that there really is no enforcement for the NCAA just shows how much this is totally gone. And, a problem that Nash brings up, do you think the death penalty could be in play? The NCAA can't do that. Like the injunction says, okay, this is it. Like at least until an appeal comes down, but they're prevented from making like any sort of, retributive move against Sorsby because of this ruling. And so that just really shows that, a state court anywhere can change the rules. And that's why you've seen coaches throughout this offseason be like, somebody needs to be in control here. We need somebody. That's why Sark said, like, you know what, have rules and enforce them at SEC spring meetings. I don't think this is directly what he was talking about, but that's the big thing. That would solve so much. And now we see that there are rules that just will not be enforced. And, that means nobody really knows what's actually going on. And I do like somebody brought up the statement from Cody Campbell. It was Chris Bennett. Cody Campbell, who has a lot to gain from this, said, "This is an unfortunate situation, and it's the outcome of a broken system. I'm doing everything I can to fix it, but until there's a permanent solution, Tech and its student athletes have to do the best they can to navigate and compete amid the chaos that exists in the reality of the world we live in." And like, I'm not as anti Cody Campbell as probably most Texas fans, because I do think that there's some stuff that he's pushing for that would be beneficial to college sports. May not be beneficial to the Big Ten or to the SEC or to Texas in general, but I think it would be good for a lot of college sports outside of football. You would think he would be celebrating this. Like, hey, my quarterback is good. Like, we got him playing this year. I think the fact that he is not taking any sort of victory lap kind of shows, the position he's in, very high profile in this issue. He probably, like, you think Mike Leach would have stood for this? Like, if Cody Campbell got caught betting even on Texas Tech back in the early 2000s, I have no clue if that is something that the Pirate would have stood for. I'm not going to try to speak for him, but like, and then, excuse me, it looks like Yormark just came out and said something to Thamel. The ramifications of today's ruling are significant and can have broad impacts across college athletics, creating great concern amongst our membership. I've been consulting with our key stakeholders, have scheduled meetings with ADs and executive board. We're also in touch with Charlie Baker. He can't come out and just not even worth reading, but he's not like, criticizing Texas Tech. And he's the commissioner of a power conference that has a bunch of NCAA members. I'm sure the 15 other schools in the Big 12 are incensed that someone who broke just the most plainly written rule in the NCAA rule book of don't gamble, who is a good football player, who they did pay a good amount of money to get, is now allowed to play. And that puts all these other schools at, probably detriment of losing a game, which I think that also is a trickle down effect. Like, look, Texas Tech's going to be good. They're going to be a contender in the Big 12 again. And I think a lot of programs thought, okay, this may be something that steps in on them from being able to be that good. Oh yeah, we also want the integrity of the sport to be strong, but now even Yormark has to try to ride the fence here when he knows it's a 15-1 issue in his own league.
Well, Joe, I'm glad you bring this up because the NCAA has no power in the sport anymore. You know, it's the single one thing they still have power over everyone here. They still host the college football playoff, and that is still the
No, they
most.
don't. It's just the NCAA tournament, and it's just the one thing.
Oh, is that true now?
One thing
Yeah.
they're good for is hosting tournaments because they can't do anything else because courts will say no. They don't. They don't
Yeah.
run the college football playoff, but I've seen people say like the playoff's probably not going to do anything because they just kind of go along with the NCAA.
Yeah, I guess what I was trying to say is that if they really want to find some kind of way to out loophole Texas Tech, is how can we say, all right, if Tech does this, then from our point of view they're playing from a standpoint that they can't participate in the playoff, and that they're not upholding the standards of teams that we believe should be competing for a national title. I don't know how you can get to that point. I don't know how if you told me that a year ago teams would be getting to the point where a player has clear and obvious, criteria that shows that he was betting on games that he was participating in, and he's just eligible to play the next year. So, never say never. But yeah, Cody Campbell is really just Mr. False Equivalency today, and that's what's so annoying about it. It's he's tweeting at Charlie Baker. Last week you didn't endorse the bipartisan Cruz Cantwell bill, so this week we're going to have our betting quarterback play, and this is your fault for not endorsing that bill. It's like, okay, well, the bill was 14 amendments long, and half those amendments were never going to work for everyone involved. It was a little too ambitious, and I get the idea what they were trying to do, but it was just never going to work for everyone. That doesn't mean that you should just turn around and say, oh, you're not helping anyone. I guess we're just going to do whatever we want and do whatever fits best for us. Like if you really cared about the sport, then you wouldn't be endorsing this. You wouldn't be trying to do this. And I get it. Make your money, go try to compete for a national title. This is the best way to do it. But if you really do care about the sport, you would be appalled by what you or yourself are pushing for.
Before we keep going, got to show some love to our sponsor. That's David McClellan.
Big financial decisions don't have to feel overwhelming. There's someone who can guide you every step of the way. David McClellan is a fiduciary financial advisor with Forum Financial, and he's working closely with his clients as a true financial life coach, guiding every aspect of your financial journey with expertise and care. If his name sounds familiar, that's because David was a swimmer at Texas and a member of several national championship teams. Today, he channels that same championship mindset into helping people win with their finances. David specializes in financial planning, and he's contributed numerous articles to Kiplinger on the topic of retirement tax bombs. And right now, David is offering viewers a free intro consultation to assess your financial situation. Do not miss this chance to get personalized guidance from a trusted expert. To schedule your free consult, email David at dmcclellan@forumfinancial.com, or you can call him directly at 312-933-8823. The contact info is in the description.
Trying to see what else is going on. All these statements popping up. What? No, it's not. Hey, he was an NCAA athlete. He knows what's on the level here. One of the other things that we kind of talked about, or two things we talked about earlier, is how does Hunter Deckers feel right now?
Yeah.
And I saw some people who are Iowa fans. Apparently one player made one $5 bet on a game or something like that and got suspended like 4 games. And meanwhile, this guy's betting $90,000 over the course of several years, does have a problem, but does break clearly defined rules. And is just, that he doesn't get a slap on the wrist. That teaches you never cooperate with the NCAA. No matter what, that's the main thing. But it's again, all these coaches have been complaining about the lack of singular standards, especially when they show up and they are able to, get a court to rule in their favor. The other thing I wanted to bring up is I can't imagine that this does anything good for Joey McGuire's reputation amongst Big 12 coaches and amongst other college football and college athletics coaches.
You're gambling so much, and sorry to use the word gamble, you're putting so much into 1 year, really. I mean, this is what this is. You are putting it all into Brendan Sorsby being your savior of your program and really taking you to the heights that you want. Because like you said, Joey McGuire is already, he's had his problems in the past, and that's fine. Like that, it's college football coaching, that happens. But it's not like he's an inner circle coach anywhere. It's not like he's this hyper respected player who, like, you're hearing his name circle around jobs at Michigan or Florida's job opening or an LSU. And like the people involved in all of this, if things don't look good in a public view, and you aren't going and like saying, all right, well, I know he gambled, but hey, look, we won a national championship. So who really cares? Those kind of guys, it really does not look good on them going forward. And this is just putting all your chips in one basket of our 2026 football team with Brendan Sorsby can withstand all of the heat we're going to get every single week, can go and win every game, can go and compete for a national title. And if that happens, let's be honest, Joe, a lot of people would forget. Now, it would come back and circle around, but at the end of the day, like, the NCAA probably couldn't strip away a national title if that were to happen, and then it'll be all worth it. But if not, and things are a little disappointing, or if things somehow do blow up in their face, Joe, and between now and game 3 of the season, week 3 of the season, for some reason there's pushback and Sorsby actually can't play, they're just going to be in shambles. I mean, things are just going to go awry all over Lubbock. And so it's really going all in on this one, of course, flawed idea that this guy should be playing football, which, he shouldn't be, and he is. That's what it is. But in B, it's like, you are doing so much to make sure that your football team this year, no matter what, can be competitive and be on the center stage. And is that going to work out? I don't think they have the team to go win the national championship. You're putting all your eggs in that basket, that this is going to be this perfect storm that we can withstand all this pressure and outside societal problems because we can go and make a run.
And then at that, like, then when you look at it from the straight up wins and losses perspective, that's why a lot of these Big 12 coaches are also mad. Like, it's like, hey, we have these rules we all agree to. He broke the biggest one, and no consequence. Okay, a 2-game suspension against Abilene Christian and Oregon State's coming down. Rooting for Malik Murphy on this one. But it's also, these Big 12 coaches are probably going to lose this game now if they're facing them. They don't like that. It is a real matter of, their livelihoods here. You think Baylor and Dave Aranda, if they could have beaten Tech this year, which now their chances of beating them if they're on the schedule are much worse, are happy about this? No. And okay, Aranda's going to get a nice buyout probably this year, but still, like, these guys don't want to lose their jobs, and they don't want to lose their jobs as a result of losing to a player into leading a team that really just, again, there's no other way to say it, just straight up broke a very plain and simple rule. So I do wonder if Joey is going to be somebody who continues to have he had a great reputation at Cedar Hill, at Baylor. He still had a really strong reputation at Tech, despite a lot of what Texas fans think of him and what he said. Like, still well thought of because of his work in the state. And yeah, he's marshaling the resources that Cody Campbell is providing him with. But this is a different step. This is very, very self-serving. And I'm very curious if this isn't going to take a ding to Joey McGuire's reputation in the coaching community. So it's a weird thing for them, like you said, for them to die on this hill. And it just shows, again, the NCAA, if it really comes down tooth and nail, it doesn't have enforcement power. That's why you see everybody advocating for all the different, congressional bills and things like that. But until we get that, Brendan Sorsby is going to play football after week 3 or week 2. And rules are whatever a county judge believes they are to be. And that's just not a sustainable thing for the sport. Saturdays are going to be fine, but the Monday through Friday and the, January to August is going to be is going to continue to be filled with a lot of different issues. And this is maybe just one of the biggest ones that stick out for not only Texas fans, but now fans of college sports around the country who are basically unanimously in opposition to this. So good topic on the Reheat. Good way to get through our Monday. Thank you for watching. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. Come talk about this over at Inside Texas. Got a thread pinned up there. It is the most active thread today by far. Come talk about it. Also get some great recruiting, great baseball insight, great team info over at Inside Texas. We'll see y'all over there if y'all use that first link in our description. Evan, thank you so much. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time on the Reheat, the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel.